Let's speak now to Christina Voigt, who's a co-chair of the Paris Agreement Implementation and Compliance Committee and a lecturer at the University of Oslo. She joins us from Glasgow. So, Christina, if you could rate what we've seen so far at COP26 on a scale of, let's say, 1 to 10, 1 being utterly disappointing and 10 being inspiring, how would you assess it?
I think we're quite well situated in the middle. We've seen a lot of activities over the last 10 days, starting, of course, with heads of state coming here, making statements, one of the other, drawing attention to the dire situation we're in. And then from there, it went down to technical expert negotiations. And as you mentioned earlier today, we've seen the first drafts for the final decisions here to be taken by states. But still, these drafts have to go through negotiations, and we are probably looking at very difficult days ahead to draw this to a final conclusion on Friday.
The point, of course, is to keep the rise of global temperatures to a certain point. Of what you've heard so far at COP26, what do you think is the most impactful? Is it the limiting of methane emissions, or what do you think?
It's the sum of all these initiatives. That is really what the presidency set out by launching all these different initiatives on methane, on forests, and transport, and steel. It is really the sum of all that, because we need actions across all sectors, across all greenhouse gases. And you can't really point out or draw out one particular initiative. It is something that has to be addressed as a basket. But the interesting thing is now how to draw these different initiatives down to the formal negotiations and how to anchor them in the outcome from this conference. And this is what we're currently are seeing, where we're seeing negotiations on the draft that hopefully will lead to a final agreement.
How do you think the world is doing since the Paris Agreement? Have we seen some leaps and bounds, or are we still stymied in never doing enough?
I think we've seen a lot of action since 2015 or 2016 when the agreement entered into force. We hear pledges for carbon neutrality around 2050, 2060 from major emitters, where we've previously never thought that that would be a possibility. And I think these pledges would have been unthinkable without the Paris Agreement. But it is not enough. We know it's not enough. We know that ambition has to increase drastically. And this is what this conference tries to achieve, that within this year or next year, parties go back to their home processes and increase the ambition they're putting in their climate pledges, or their nationally determined contributions, as they are called, so that it actually matters. But we've seen also that the initiatives that were launched here at the conference in Glasgow together may lead us to a path for about 1.8 degree warming. So we're closing in on 1.5 degrees, and I think this gives a lot of reason for hope.
Yeah, I think anyone watching looks for reason to hope. But at the same time, you see the urgency all around us, with droughts in places that did not experience them so severely, endless fires and other meteorological events that are clearly linked to global heating. And that's why we hear these harsh criticisms from climate advocates, saying that there's greenwashing going on, that nobody is doing enough. Do they have a point that the urgency is not translating into the kind of action that we should see at this point?
Of course they have a point. The urgency is not quickly translating into action. I think that the delegates here and the heads of state that were here last week are very well aware of the urgency and the enormity of the task ahead. But it is a difficult and it's a challenging task which cannot be done overnight. But I think the pressure is on, and everybody feels this here. If you walk through the halls here, if you talk to delegates, if you talk to people, there is not a single person, I think, that doubts that anymore. But translating this into text and then translating text into action is, of course, something that takes time, and it takes time that we currently don't have anymore. And the pictures that you're showing and the things that we've seen during the last summer here in Europe and in Western America are just telling a very, very difficult story. And I think it is a very important voice that we're hearing from activists to remind everyone that there is no time to lose. And this is one of the last junctions to get action off the ground.
Very well put. Christina, it's a pleasure to have you on our program.